Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The desert shimmered like molten glass, heat rising in visible waves that bent the horizon into something liquid and cruel. Zarya's boots dragged through sand that glittered with fragments of pulverized bone, remnants of some ancient catastrophe that had turned this entire continent into a killing ground. Her armor, once polished to mirror brightness for coronation ceremonies, hung in cracked plates across her shoulders. Blue skin blistered where the chest piece had failed. Lips split so deep she tasted copper every time she tried to swallow. Behind her, half buried in ash the color of charcoal, lay Captain Vane. His eyes were still open. She'd stopped closing them after the third body. The outpost appeared first as a heat mirage, then as something solid. Rusted metal panels bolted to ancient concrete. A structure that looked like it had survived through spite alone. No flags, no lights, just a single door that hung crooked on its frame. Zarya's hand found the grip of her sidearm. Empty. She'd fired the last charge into a sand viper 2 days ago. The weapon now served only as weight, a reminder of what power used to feel like. She pushed the door. It screamed on corroded hinges. Inside, dim and mercifully cool, a human sat with his back to her. He worked on something electronic, wires spread across a table like mechanical entrails. His hands moved with the efficiency of someone who'd performed the same repair 1,000 times. A radio crackled static, then a fragment of music, something old from before the colonies, before the war. He didn't turn when her shadow fell across the table. "You're the guide?" Her voice came out rougher than intended, raw from days without speaking. "Depends who's asking." His accent carried the flat vowels of Earth's eastern megacities, a place she'd only seen in historical hollows. "A queen." He set down his tools with deliberate slowness, still not turning. "Then you're already lost." When he finally faced her, she saw a man carved down to essentials. Scars mapped his jaw. His eyes held the particular emptiness of someone who'd stopped expecting anything good. Prison tattoos marked his forearms. Service numbers, unit designations, something else she didn't recognize. "I can pay." She reached into her belt pouch, pulled out the ring, her mother's seal, obsidian set in gold alloy, the crest of the 7 spires etched so fine it caught the dim light. She placed it on the table between them. Alex Mercer picked it up, turned it over in calloused fingers, held it to the light, weighed it, then without ceremony tossed it into the fire burning in a converted fuel drum. Zarya lunged forward. Too late. The ring landed in the coals. It didn't melt. He watched it, then nodded. Real metal. Real deal. He looked at her properly for the first time, gaze traveling from her cracked armor to her bleeding feet. "Then the road's real too. Straight through hell. I'm aware of the route's reputation." "Are you?" He stood and she realized he was taller than expected. Built like someone who'd survived through strength and cunning in equal measure. Because reputation doesn't cover the acid storms, or the scavenger clans, or the fact that the last 3 people who hired me for this run didn't make it past the glass fields. "I'm not like them." "No." His mouth quirked. Not quite a smile. "You're worse. You're desperate." The word hit like a punch, because he was right. She could feel desperation in every nerve, every shallow breath. Her throne was held by her cousin, a man who'd smiled at her coronation and then ordered her guards to fire on her motorcade. Half her council was dead. The other half had scattered to rebel strongholds in the northern canyons, if they were still alive. "When do we leave?" She kept her voice level. "After dark, storms coming in from the east. We can use it for cover if we time it right." He crossed to a locker, started pulling out gear. "You know how to drive?" "I commanded 3 armored divisions." "That's not what I asked." "No." "Then you'll learn. Can't have a passenger on this run. Everyone works or everyone dies." He tossed her a jacket. Patch Syntex, too large. "Put that on. Your armor's going to cook you before we hit the first waypoint." She caught it, hesitated. The armor was her last piece of royal identity, the one thing that marked her as more than just another refugee. "It's just metal," he said quietly, watching her face. "You're what's royal, not that junk." Zarya's hands moved to the clasp. They resisted, corroded by sand and heat. Alex crossed the space between them, didn't ask permission, just started working the frozen mechanisms with a multi-tool. His fingers brushed her collarbone. She flinched. Easy? His voice stayed neutral. I'm not going to hurt you. Everyone says that. Yeah, but I'm getting paid not to. The armor fell away piece by piece. Without it, she felt naked, vulnerable, human in a way she hadn't experienced since childhood. The jacket he'd given her smelled like machine oil and dust, hung past her knees. She rolled the sleeves up, avoided looking at her reflection in the metal wall. We've got 6 hours until dark, Alex said, returning to his gear. Get some sleep. There's a cot in the back. I don't need... You're swaying on your feet. Sleep or I leave you here. Your choice. She wanted to argue, wanted to command, but her legs were shaking, vision blurring at the edges. She found the cot, little more than canvas stretched over pipe, and collapsed onto it. The last thing she heard was the radio crackling back to life, playing something mournful and old. She dreamed of fire, of her captain's eyes still open in the ash. Night swallowed the desert like an act of mercy. The temperature dropped 40 degrees in an hour, turning the air knife-sharp. Zarya woke to the sound of an engine coughing to life. A rover that looked like it had been assembled from 3 different vehicles and pure stubbornness. 6 wheels, all mismatched. Armor plating welded in overlapping sheets. A roll cage that had seen combat. Alex sat in the driver's seat, hands working the controls with practiced ease. Get in. We're burning darkness. She climbed into the passenger side. The seat was torn, patched with tape. Everything smelled like fuel and rust. The dashboard was a chaos of aftermarket instruments, half of them cracked or dead. Buckle up. He didn't wait for her to comply before slamming the accelerator. The rover lurched forward, tires chewing sand, and they shot into the darkness. For the first hour, neither spoke. The desert at night was a different creature, cold, vast, lit only by 3 moons that cast overlapping shadows. Alex drove without lights, navigating by memory and instruments. Zarya watched the darkness, hand resting near the empty holster at her hip. Turn east, she said suddenly. The ridge is safer. Then you drive. I told you. And I'm telling you that ridge is a kill zone. Scavengers use it for ambush. We go through the flats or we don't go at all. She clenched her jaw so hard her teeth ached. I fought wars for honor. And I smuggled medicine those wars forgot. His voice stayed flat, eyes on the terrain. We both lost. The engine hummed in the silence that followed. Zarya stared at his profile, sharp, weathered, utterly unmoved by her rank or her anger. No one had spoken to her like this since she'd been crowned. Before that, even. If you plan to cage me with commands, she said quietly, you'll have to build stronger chains. He glanced at her then, something like respect flickering in his eyes. Good. I don't want a prisoner. I want someone who survives. The engine hummed in the silence that followed. Zarya stared at his profile, sharp, weathered, utterly unmoved by her rank or her anger. No one had spoken to her like this since she'd been crowned. Before that even. Her tutors, her guards, her advisors, everyone had learned the language of deference. This man didn't know it, or didn't care to use it. Why medicine? She asked. Why not? You could have smuggled weapons, tech, things that pay better. Yeah, he shifted gears as the terrain changed. But kids don't die waiting for weapons. Before she could respond, the horizon split open with light, green, sickly, spreading like infection across the sky. Lightning that moved wrong, forking downward in slow motion. Fuck! Alex's hands tightened on the wheel. Storm's early. What kind of storm? The kind that eats metal and flesh and doesn't care about the difference. He accelerated, the rover's engine screaming. Hold on to something. The green light intensified, spreading like gangrene across the clouds. Wind hit them from the side, strong enough to rock the rover on its suspension. Then the first drops fell, thick, viscous, hissing where they struck the hull. Acid. How far to shelter? Zarya's voice stayed controlled. Too far. More drops. The windshield started to pit and cloud. Alex yanked the wheel hard left, sending them careening toward a cluster of rock formations barely visible in the stormlight. The rover bounced over stones, suspension groaning, and for a terrible moment, Zarya thought they'd roll. Then the formations rose around them, offering partial cover. Alex killed the engine. In the sudden quiet, she could hear the acid eating the hull. If you want to lead, he said, voice calm despite everything, stop giving orders. Start giving up fear. She turned to him, about to respond, when lightning painted the interior green. His face half in shadow, eyes reflecting the storm. For a heartbeat, she saw not a smuggler, but something else. Someone who'd survived things that should have killed him. Someone who understood exactly what she was running from. I can't give up fear, she said quietly. It's all I have left. The rover shuddered as wind slammed into them. Metal screamed somewhere in the chassis. Alex's hand found the door release. Then let's be afraid together. Move! They ran through green rain that burned exposed skin on contact. Zaria's jacket smoked where drops struck, the Syntex barely holding. Alex led, one hand gripping her wrist, pulling her toward a dark opening in the rocks. A cave. Natural or carved, she couldn't tell in the chaos. They dove inside as the storm reached full fury outside. The sound was like God screaming, wind and thunder, and the constant hiss of acid-eating stone. They crawled deeper, away from the entrance, until the passage opened into a larger chamber. Zaria collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Her shoulder burned. Looking down, she saw a shard of rock protruding from the joint where her sleeve had ridden up. Blood, blue in the dim light, ran down her arm. Don't touch, Alex started. Too late. She gripped the shard, pulled. Wrong angle. It grated against bone. This time she couldn't stop the sound that escaped her throat. Alex crossed to her in 2 steps, his hands intercepting hers. Stop! You'll tear the artery. His multi-tool appeared, blade catching what little light penetrated the cave. This is going to hurt worse. Everything hurts. Fair point. He pressed the knife edge to her skin, cut clean. The shard came free, followed by more blood than she'd expected. She gripped his wrist without thinking, fingers digging into Syntex and skin beneath. His glove tore under her grip. Their blood mingled, blue and red mixing to purple. He didn't pull away, just held her gaze, his hand steady under hers, warm despite the cold cave air. The moment stretched. Too long, too intimate. Finally, he tore a strip from her royal cape and bound her arm with efficient movements. But when he tied it off, his fingers lingered against her skin for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Why help me? The question came out as a whisper. Because you're human enough to bleed. He sat back, pulled a flask from his jacket. And because I made a deal, I keep deals. He drank first, then offered it to her. Water, warm, tasting of metal and recycler chemicals. But water. She drank, felt it soothe her raw throat. Then slowly she handed it back. He drank from the same edge without hesitation. Outside, the storm continued to scream. Inside, something else was happening. Something neither of them had words for yet. Your exile, Alex said after a long silence. It wasn't political, was it? What makes you say that? Political exiles get dropped in cities, given house arrest, made examples of. He gestured to the cave, to the desert beyond. They don't get hunted through wastelands by their own guards. Zarya was quiet for a long time. My cousin wanted the throne. He needed me dead, not just gone. Dead removes questions. She touched the bandage on her arm. The guards were supposed to make it look like bandits. Quick, clean. But Captain Vane warned me. Gave me 30 seconds to run. The one buried in ash? Yes. You tried to go back for him. It wasn't a question. She met his eyes, found something there that looked like understanding. How did you know? Because you're the kind of stupid that gets people killed, including yourself. He said it without malice, just fact. Your captain gave you a gift. You trying to refuse it insults his memory. He had a daughter back in the capital. Then live. That's how you honor him. Stay alive and take back what's yours so his daughter has a queen instead of a tyrant. The logic was brutal. Correct. She wanted to hate him for it, but couldn't. What did you do? She asked. To end up here. Stole medical supplies from a military depot. His voice stayed flat. They were going to sit in storage while a colony outbreak got worse. I redistributed them. That's not a crime. It is when you redistribute them by blowing the depot's security grid and killing 2 guards in the process. He took another drink. I didn't mean to kill them. Charges were set too hot, but intent doesn't matter much when you're being sentenced. How long? 20 years. Served 8 before they offered me this. He gestured to the desert beyond the cave. Guide duty on the most hostile continent on the planet. Knock 3 years off for every successful run. Die trying, and nobody cares because I'm already dead on paper. How many successful runs have you completed? Counting this one? Still 0. The number landed like a stone. Zarya stared at him, realization dawning cold and certain. The 3 people you mentioned, the ones who didn't make it past the glass fields? Yeah, you were trying. You weren't just abandoning them. Trying doesn't mean shit in the desert. Results are all that matter. He capped the flask, tucked it away. Storm's dying. We should move at first light. The rover might be salvageable if the acid didn't eat through anything critical. And if it did, then we walk. It's only 200 kilometers to the next outpost. She couldn't tell if he was joking. His expression gave nothing away. They slept in shifts, Zarya taking first watch because her shoulder hurt too much to rest. She sat near the cave entrance, watching the green lightning fade to ordinary storm, then to stars. Alex lay with his back to the wall, one hand near his knife even in sleep. She wondered what dreams haunted a man who'd killed by accident and been exiled for mercy. When dawn came, they found the rover half buried in sand, the hull pitted and scarred but intact. The acid had eaten through the windshield and part of the roll cage. Everything else had held. Tough bastard, Alex said with something like affection. He ran his hands over the damage, checking seals and connections. We'll need to drive without the windshield. Sand's going to be hell, but it beats melting. Can it make the distance? We're about to find out. They drove through landscape that looked like something had died badly. The glass fields stretched for kilometers, sand fused into jagged sheets by some old weapon or natural catastrophe. Sharp edges caught the sun, turning the world into a maze of mirrors and cutting surfaces. Alex navigated by instinct, taking paths too narrow for comfort, wheels inches from drops that would shred the tires. Zarya watched the shimmer and tried not to think about thirst. They'd ration the water, 1 drink every 4 hours. Her lips were splitting again. Tell me about your throne, Alex said suddenly. Why? Because I'm bored and you're quiet when you're scared. Talk, distract us both. She considered refusing. Instead, the 7 spires, built by the first colonists, carved into the mountain itself. You can see the entire valley from the throne room. When I was crowned, they opened the eastern wall, panels of translucent stone. The sunrise came through like liquid gold. Sounds pretty. It was, before my cousin filled it with his creatures. Creatures? Men who smile when they lie, who laugh when they torture, who see the throne as a tool instead of a responsibility. She gripped the dashboard as they bounced over rough ground. He'll bleed the valley dry. Take everything and leave nothing but bones. Then we make sure you get there first. You keep saying we. Yeah, I noticed that too. He glanced at her, expression unreadable. Seems I've gotten invested. Happens sometimes. Don't worry, I'll charge extra. Before she could respond, he slammed the brakes. The rover skidded, stopped inches from a tripwire strung across the path. She followed his gaze to the rocks above. Shadows moved there. Too many to count. Scavengers, Alex breathed. Get down. Too late. Figures rose from concealment on all sides. 30, 40, more. Wrapped in rags and scavenged armor, faces hidden behind respirator masks that gave them the look of insects. Weapons varied from improvised clubs to actual firearms. They moved with the coordination of a hunting pack. A voice called out, filtered through a mask. Rover, supplies, your lives. Choose what you keep. Alex's hand moved to the pistol at his hip. Zarya counted the odds. Bad, very bad. If you command now, we die, Alex whispered. Just follow. He stood slowly, hands visible. Just passing through. Don't want trouble. Trouble's already here. The speaker stepped forward, taller than the others, wearing armor that looked military grade. The Queen pays well for blue-skinned bodies. Zarya's blood turned to ice. They knew. Her cousin's bounty had reached even here. Don't know what you're talking about, Alex said easily. Just a guide and his client. Show us the client. Alex glanced at Zarya, and in that moment she understood. He was buying time, looking for an opening. She needed to give him one. She stood. Let them see her face. Blue skin, royal bearing, every eye locked on her. That's her, someone said. 5,000 credits, alive or dead. Alex moved. His hand went not to his pistol but to his belt, came up with something small and cylindrical. He hurled it into the sand between them and the scavengers. A flare battery. "Close your eyes," he shouted. She did. The world went white even through her eyelids. Then Alex's hand found hers and they were running, stumbling through smoke and burning after images. Shouts behind them. A gunshot cracked past her head. She drew her empty pistol, swung it like a club, felt it connect with a respirator mask. The scavenger went down. Alex's knife flashed, cutting a weapon strap before the blade could reach his throat. They fought back to back, clumsy and brutal. No technique, just survival instinct and desperate strength. Zarya grabbed a drop club, swung at knees and elbows, anything vulnerable. Her wounded shoulder screamed, but she ignored it. Alex moved beside her like they'd trained together for years, covering her blind spots without being told. When a scavenger came at him from the right, she was already there, striking low. The fight lasted minutes but felt like hours. When it ended, bodies littered the ground. Unconscious or broken, she didn't check which. She and Alex stood among them, both bleeding, both shaking from adrenaline crash. "You saved my life," she said, the words coming out stunned. "You saved mine first. Guess we're even." He dropped to his knees, not from wounds but exhaustion. "You can give orders again. I'm out of strength." She knelt beside him, hands checking for injuries automatically. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. His knuckles were shredded, but he was breathing. Alive. They both were. "We need to move," she said. "They'll have friends." "Yeah, give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." He laughed, rough and pained. "Yes, Your Majesty. Moving now, Your Majesty." But he stood, leaning on her more than she thought he'd ever admit. They reached the rover. Alex drove one-handed, the other pressed to his ribs where he'd taken a hit. Zarya watched him from the corner of her eye, trying to reconcile the man who'd thrown her ring in the fire with the one who'd just fought a small army to keep her alive. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why fight for me? The bounty's real. 5,000 credits. You could have just let them take me." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "You handed me back the water flask. Could have kept it. Could have drunk it all while I slept. But you shared." He shifted gears, winced. "That's rare. Rarer than you think." "That's the reason? I gave you water?" "No. That's when I decided. The reason is because you're not running from responsibility. You're running toward it. And that's the kind of person who deserves to make it." The rebel stronghold appeared at dusk, carved into canyon walls that rose like the fingers of a buried god. Flares shot into the sky. Recognition signals. Alex slowed the rover, let them see it was safe. Gates opened, massive and ancient, stone grinding against stone. Soldiers poured out. When they saw Zarya, they dropped to their knees. "Your Majesty," echoed across the canyon, a sound she'd thought she'd never hear again. She stood from the rover, armor polished as best she could manage, bearing reclaim despite exhaustion and pain. These were her people, her loyal forces, the ones who'd refused her cousin's bribes and fled to continue the fight. Alex stayed behind, leaning against the rover, covered in dust and blood, and looking like he wanted to disappear. She walked toward her soldiers, accepted their salutes, their pledges of loyalty. Commander Taith approached, a woman who'd served her mother before her. "Your Majesty, we feared you dead." "Nearly. This man prevented it." She gestured to Alex. Taith looked him over with open skepticism. "A human, a criminal, a guide, an ally." Zarya's voice hardened. "He brought me through hell to reach you." "And his payment?" She reached into her pouch, pulled out her mother's ring, retrieved from the fire, somehow still perfect. She'd pocketed it before they left the outpost, held it now in her palm, feeling its weight. Alex caught her eye across the distance, shook his head slightly, mouthed, "Keep it." She turned to him, every step heavy with regained authority, with power that was starting to remember itself in her spine. "Fear me, human. You saw me weak." He pushed off the rover, pulled something from his pocket. The ring, charred but intact. He tossed it at her feet. "I saw you survive. That's rarer than power." The soldiers tensed. No one spoke to a queen this way. Taith's hand moved to her weapon. Alex grinned, crooked and defiant. "Besides, after my ex-wife, you're adorable." The canyon went silent. Zarya stared at him, caught between fury and something else. something that felt dangerously close to laughter. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever dared. Her gauntlet clenched. The soldiers waited for her command. One word and they'd cut him down. Instead, she picked up the ring, turned it over in her palm, felt its warmth, not from fire, but from being carried close to his body through the desert. Your ex-wife, she said quietly, almost to herself. Did she also overthrow you? Worse. She taught me what trust costs. He turned, walking into the torchlight that was beginning to fill the canyon. But that's a story for another time. Sand hissed under his boots as he walked away, not fleeing, but simply done with the conversation. Zarya watched him go, this impossible man who'd saved her life and mocked her crown in the same breath. Your Majesty? Taith's voice held uncertainty. Zarya lifted her head, let authority settle back around her shoulders like the cape he'd torn for bandages. Find him quarters among us, good ones, and never call him slave. But he's a criminal, a prisoner. He's the man who brought your queen home alive. Her voice carried across the canyon, reached the listening soldiers. He'll be treated with honor. Anyone who fails to do so answers to me personally. The order was acknowledged. Soldiers dispersed to their duties, casting uncertain glances at the human who'd insulted their queen and somehow earned her protection. Taith lingered. Your Majesty, may I speak freely? You always have. That man is dangerous, not because of what he's done, but because of what he represents. You cannot appear weak. The court is full of vipers who sold me to my cousin. Zarya's voice hardened. This man bled for me when my own guards tried to bury me in ash. I'll take dangerous loyalty over courteous betrayal. And if he betrays you too, then I'll kill him myself. She said it simply, without emotion. But I don't think he will. Why? Because he gave me back my ring. Twice. She looked down at it, still warm in her palm. Power doesn't impress him. Survival does. And I intend to survive long enough to take back what's mine. She walked deeper into the stronghold, following the paths carved by her people's ancestors. Soldiers saluted as she passed. Officers reported on supplies, troop strength, intelligence from the capital. Her cousin had consolidated power quickly, executing loyalists, installing his creatures in positions of authority. The valley was suffering under his rule. Food shortages, arbitrary arrests, public executions. Everything she'd feared was coming true. In the war room, maps covered the stone walls, tactical positions, supply lines, defensive formations. Taith and the other commanders briefed her on their situation. It was bad. They had maybe 2,000 fighters, poorly armed and barely trained. Her cousin commanded the Royal Army, 10,000 professional soldiers plus mercenaries. We cannot win by conventional warfare, Commander Drath said. He was old enough to have served her grandfather. We need allies, the northern clans perhaps, or the northern clans hate monarchy more than tyranny, Taith interrupted. They won't help us restore her throne. Then we make them a different offer, Zarya said. Autonomy, true autonomy, not the token representation they have now. Your Majesty, that would weaken the throne. The throne is already weak. It's held by a murderer using fear and violence to maintain control. I'd rather rule over willing allies than terrorize subjects. She traced a line on the map, marking clan territories. Drath, you'll lead the diplomatic mission. Take gifts. Take promises in my seal. And if they refuse, then we fight without them. But we give them the choice first. The meeting continued into the night. Supply chains, training schedules, intelligence operations. The machinery of rebellion, grinding slowly forward. When it finally ended, Zarya felt the weight of it all pressing down, heavier than armor, heavier than crowns. She found her quarters, a carved chamber high in the canyon wall, windows looking over the valley below. Someone had brought her things, the few items rescued from the palace. A gown, her mother's journals, a holopic of her coronation day, young and certain and naive. A knock at the door. She opened it to find Alex, cleaned up but still battered, holding 2 cups that steamed in the cool air. Thought you might want this, he said, offering one. It's not good, but it's hot. She took it. Some kind of tea, bitter and earthy. You should be resting. Yeah, so should you. He didn't leave, just leaned against the doorframe. This is a nice place. For a rebel hideout. Better than my assigned quarters. Where did they put you? Barracks with the scouts. They hate me, but they're professional about it. I can have you moved. No, it's fine. I'm used to being hated. Comes with the record. He sipped his tea, made a face. This is awful. Yes. She drank anyway. They stood in silence, looking out over the valley. 3 moons hung in the sky, casting overlapping shadows across the canyon. Your war room, Alex said finally. That was impressive. You know what you're doing. I was trained for this since childhood. No, I mean you actually care about the people, the outcome, not just about the throne. He looked at her directly. That's rare too. Stop saying that. Stop treating basic decency like it's exceptional. It is, in my experience. He set down his cup. Look, I'll be gone in the morning. My contract was to get you here. That's done. Taith already processed my release credit. 3 years off my sentence for a successful run. The words hit harder than expected. You're leaving. That was always the deal. Yes, of course. She forced her voice to stay level. Thank you for your service. Don't do that. Don't go formal on me now. He straightened. You're going to be okay. You've got loyal people, a defensible position, and the kind of stubborn that wins wars. You'll get your throne back, and you'll go back to prison. No, back to guide duty. Still 12 years to work off. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe the next client will be less trouble. I nearly got you killed. Yeah, but you kept me alive first. Like I said, even. She wanted to tell him to stay, wanted to offer him a position, a role, something that would keep this impossible man in her orbit. But she couldn't. Wouldn't. He'd completed his contract. Asking more would make her like her cousin, someone who took without consent. If you ever need a guide again, he said, turning to leave, you know where to find me. Then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the stone corridor. Zarya stood alone in her quarters, holding the tea that had gone cold, staring at the ring she'd placed on the windowsill. It caught moonlight, gleamed like it had in her mother's hand, her grandmother's before that. Legacy, responsibility, power, all of it worth less than one scarred smuggler's respect. She picked up the ring, slipped it onto her finger for the first time since her coronation, felt its weight, made her decision. Dawn came cold and clear. Alex was in the barracks packing the few items he'd accumulated when Taith appeared. The Queen requests your presence. War room. Now. He followed, expecting a formal goodbye, some ceremony to mark his departure. Probably payment, though Taith had already processed the important part, his sentence reduction. The war room was empty except for Zarya. She stood at the central table, maps spread before her, wearing full armor now, ceremonial pieces mixed with combat gear. She looked like the queen from propaganda hollows, except real, dangerous. You sent for me, Your Majesty. Stop that. Use my name. She didn't look up from the maps. I have a proposition. I completed my contract. This is a different contract. Now she looked at him, eyes sharp. I need an outsider, someone not bound by loyalty or tradition or fear, someone who tells me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. You have commanders for that. I have commanders who've spent their lives in military hierarchy. They think in terms of proper channels and chain of command. You think in terms of survival and efficiency? She traced a route on the map. This plan Drath proposed. The diplomatic mission to the northern clans. It's suicide. He'll take a small honor guard, approach through established channels, probably get ambushed before he's 10 kilometers in. So send a larger force. That looks like invasion. The clans will interpret it as threat. She tapped the map. But a smuggler. Someone who knows the back routes and doesn't trigger territorial defense. Someone who can make contact informally. He stared at her. You want me to be your envoy. I want you to open a door, get me a meeting, nothing more. I'm a criminal, a prisoner. Why would they trust me? Because you're not me. You're not monarchy. You're just a man who survived impossible odds and lived to talk about it. She pulled a data chip from her belt. This contains my offer. Autonomy, trade rights, seats on the council, everything they've demanded for generations. All they have to do is meet with me. And if they kill the messenger, then I'll mourn you. And find another way. She said it simply without pretense. I won't order you to do this. It's a choice, but I'm asking. He looked at the chip, at the maps, at her face, carefully neutral but with something underneath. Hope, maybe, or just desperation wearing a different mask. What's in it for me? Another 3 years off your sentence, plus supplies, weapons, and my personal guarantee that if you die doing this, I'll make sure your name means something more than prisoner. Sentimental, practical. Good people should be remembered as good people. He took the chip, felt its weight. Barely anything. Just data. But data that could change everything or get him killed trying. The northern clans don't negotiate. They take or they destroy. Then you'll have to be convincing. I'm a smuggler, not a diplomat. You convinced me to trust you in about 30 seconds. In a desert. While I was armed. She almost smiled. I think you'll manage. He pocketed the chip. When do I leave? Dawn tomorrow. Gives you time to resupply and plan your route. She pulled out another item, a signet. Not her ring, but something older. This is my grandmother's seal. The clans knew her, respected her. She gave them the first autonomy agreements before the court overruled her. Show them this. They'll at least listen before they kill you. He took it, turned it over. The metal was warm from her hand again. You're giving me a lot of valuable things to carry around. Because I trust you to bring them back. Why? You gave me my ring, twice. You shared water when you had none to spare. You fought beside me when you could have run. She met his eyes directly. And you're still here, arguing with me, when you could be halfway to the next outpost by now. She was right. He'd packed his gear this morning, fully intending to leave. Had made it to the gates before turning back, telling himself he just wanted to say goodbye properly. Telling himself it meant nothing. Your ex-wife, Zarya said quietly. You said she taught you what trust costs. She did. What did it cost you? He was silent for a long moment. Everything I had, everything I was. She was a medic in my unit. Smart, brave. We were going to leave the service together, start something clean. He touched the scar on his jaw. Then the depot mission happened. I told her about it first, asked her to help. She turned me into command, testified against me at trial, said she didn't know I'd be violent, said she feared for her life. But you weren't violent. You said the charges were set too hot. Yeah, accident. But she didn't know that when she reported me. She just knew I was planning something illegal and decided her career was worth more than my freedom. He looked at the signet. So when I say trust is rare, I mean it. And when I find it, I don't walk away easy. Zarya stepped closer. They were near enough now that he could see the flecks of darker blue in her eyes, the faint scar on her collarbone where the armor had failed. I won't betray you, Alex Mercer. Whatever happens with this war with my throne, I won't use you and discard you. That's a promise. Promises from queens. Those are binding, right? Mine are. He believed her. Against all his learned cynicism, all his hard-won skepticism, he believed her. Then I'll go talk to your clans. But if they kill me, you have to promise something else. What? Don't start a war over it. One dead smuggler isn't worth thousands of dead soldiers. You're not just a smuggler. Yeah? What am I then? She smiled, small and genuine. Rare. The next 30 hours were preparation. Alex studied maps, memorized routes, talked to scouts who'd operated in clan territory. The northern clans were fragmented. 7 major groups, dozens of smaller ones, all fiercely independent and historically hostile to central authority. They'd been pushed to the Badlands generations ago, forced to eke out survival in territory nobody else wanted. Zarya's grandmother had tried to reconcile with them, offering limited self-governance. It had worked until the court, jealous of their power, revoked the agreements. Since then, the clans had attacked any royal envoy on sight. So I'm walking into a death trap, Alex said to Taith, who was overseeing his supplies. Yes, but you're used to those. She didn't sound sympathetic. The queen trusts you. I don't. But I follow her orders. Inspirational. If you betray her, I'll hunt you to the edge of the world and beyond. Noted. She handed him a sidearm. Military grade. Fully charged. Don't die stupidly. What about intelligently? That's acceptable. He left at dawn, taking a lighter rover and minimal supplies. The route north was brutal. Broken rock fields, razor canyons, temperature swings that could kill. But it was also invisible to satellites and aerial patrols. The clans used it for raiding. He'd use it for diplomacy. 3 days into the journey, he saw the first signs. Bone markers, territory warnings carved in stone. He was being watched. Had been for the last day, probably. He kept driving, hands visible, weapons secured. Non-threatening. The attack came at dusk. Not violence, a barrier. Massive stones rolled across the path, blocking passage. He stopped the rover, waited. Figures appeared on the rocks above, wrapped in environment suits that blurred their outlines. Weapons trained down on him, a voice amplified and distorted. Declare. Alex Mercer, guide. I carry a message from Queen Zarya. The exiled one. The rightful one. Silence, then, step from the vehicle, hands visible. Any weapon draw, you die. He complied, moving slowly. The figures descended, surrounding him with professional efficiency. They wore armor that looked scavenged but was actually custom, built from salvage but engineered perfectly. Their leader, marked by red paint across the helmet, stepped forward. You are brave or foolish? Probably both. Why does the exiled one send a human? Because I'm expendable, and because I'm not part of her court. I'm just a man with a message. He pulled out the data chip carefully. Her offer, in full detail. She asks only for a meeting. We do not meet with royalty. Then meet with her as Zarya. Not a queen, just a woman who wants to stop her cousin from bleeding the valley dry. Her family bled us first. No, her court did. Her grandmother tried to fix it. Zarya wants to finish what her grandmother started. He pulled out the signet, held it up. She gave me this. Recognition, proof she honors old agreements. The leader took the signet, examined it, turned it over in gloved hands, conferred with others in a language Alex didn't know. Finally, and come, the council will decide. They bound his hands, not cruelly, just securely, and took his weapons. Put a hood over his head. He didn't resist. Fought every instinct that screamed trap, ambush, execution, trusted Zarya's judgment that this was possible. The journey took hours. He lost track of direction, time, everything except the sound of boots on stone and the smell of recycled air through the hood. When they finally stopped and removed it, he was in a cavern lit by bioluminescent fungi, huge pale mushrooms that cast everything in ghostly blue light. The clan council sat in a semicircle. 7 figures, all masked, all watching him with the intensity of predators deciding if something is food or threat. Speak, the leader said. Alex laid out Zarya's offer. Real autonomy, control over resources, trade, governance. Representation on the royal council with actual voting power. Legal recognition of clan law within clan territories. Everything her grandmother had promised and the court had stolen. Why should we believe her? One of the council asked. Her blood is the same blood that exiled us. Her blood is also the same blood her cousin tried to bury in ash. She understands exile, understands being betrayed by people who should protect you. He met their eyes, each one. She's not asking you to bow. She's asking you to ally, partner. Help her remove a tyrant and she'll give you what you fought for. And if we refuse, then she fights without you, probably loses. Her cousin solidifies power and you get a ruler who sees you as vermin instead of citizens. He leaned forward. Or you could kill me now, send her my body, start a war you might win but will definitely bleed for. Those are your options. You're very direct. I'm too tired to be diplomatic. One of them laughed. Actual laughter, filtered through the mask but genuine. He speaks truth. I like this one. Truth is not alliance, another said. They debated in their language again. Alex waited, tried not to think about how far underground he was, how many weapons were pointed at him, how easy it would be to just disappear here, and nobody would ever know. Finally, the leader spoke. We will meet with the exiled one, not in her stronghold, not in royal territory, neutral ground, the old trade post at Broken Mesa, 3 days from now. She'll be there. If this is deception, then you'll kill her and me and start your war. I get it. No deception. Just a woman trying to take back her throne and do it right this time. They kept him overnight, gave him food, bitter and strange but filling, and a place to sleep. In the morning, they returned his weapons, his supplies, and the signet. Tell her we remember her grandmother, the leader said. Tell her we will judge her by her own actions, not her bloodline. And tell her if she becomes her cousin, we will end her ourselves. I'll tell her. The journey back was faster. They removed the hood after the first hour, let him see the route. A sign of trust, maybe, or just confidence they could kill him if he misused the knowledge. He reached the stronghold at dusk on the second day, drove through the gates covered in dust and exhaustion. Taith met him, eyes wide. You survived. Disappointed? Surprised. She actually smiled. The Queen will want your report immediately. Zarya was in her quarters, poring over intelligence reports. She looked up when he entered, and something in her face shifted. Relief, maybe, or just recognition. They agreed, he said without preamble. 3 days. Broken Mesa. Neutral ground. She stood, crossed to him. Her hands found his arms, gripped tight. You did it. They did it. I just delivered the message and didn't get killed. He handed her the signet. They remember your grandmother. They'll judge you separately, and they will kill you if you become your cousin. Fair terms. You're taking this calmly. Because I expected nothing less. She released him but stayed close. Alex Mercer, you've done more for me than any of my court ever did, than most of my allies. How do I repay that? Another 3 years off, like you promised. And maybe dinner. Real dinner, not rations. Done. Both. She actually laughed. Though I warn you, Rebel Stronghold cuisine is mostly boiled and rationed. Still better than desert rations? She called for food, for drink. They sat in her quarters as the moons rose, talking about nothing important. His prison years, her childhood lessons, the strange paths that had led them both to this canyon. It felt normal, human, like they were just two people instead of queen and criminal. Tell me about your ex-wife, she said eventually. If you want to. Why? Because you mentioned her twice. Because she hurt you badly enough that you still carry it. Because I want to know what made you stop trusting. He was quiet, considering. Then, her name was Kira. We served together for 3 years. She saved my life in combat twice. I saved hers once. We talked about leaving, starting a clinic somewhere quiet, helping people instead of fighting. He stared at his hands. The depot mission was supposed to be our way out. Get the medicine to the colony, prove that military law was wrong, accept the consequences together. Except she decided her consequences didn't need to include mine. She testified against you. Completely. Said I was violent, unstable, that she'd feared I'd hurt her if she refused to help. None of it was true, but it played well to the tribunal. She walked away clean. I got 20 years. I'm sorry. Don't be, I'm not. He looked at her directly. Because if she hadn't betrayed me, I wouldn't have been on guide duty. Wouldn't have been at that outpost. Wouldn't have met a blue-skinned queen stumbling through the desert. He smiled. Wouldn't have found out that trust still exists. Just rare. She reached across the table, her hand covering his. Not rare, just selective. You choose who to trust carefully now. That's wisdom, not damage. Maybe. They sat like that, hands touching, moons casting light through the window. Finally, she withdrew, stood. You should rest. The meeting at Broken Mesa will be dangerous. I'll need you sharp. You want me there? Of course. You open this door. You should see what comes through it. Broken Mesa was exactly what the name suggested. A plateau that had collapsed on one side, leaving a flat expanse with a sheer drop and defensive approaches. The old trade post sat in the center, abandoned for decades but still structurally sound. Neutral ground because nobody wanted it. Zarya brought a small force, 20 soldiers, enough for protection, but not threat. Alex drove her personally, the rover equipped with better armor and weapons. Taith commanded the escort, radiating disapproval with every breath. This could be an ambush, she said for the 10th time. It could, Zarya agreed, but it won't be. They gave their word. To him, she gestured at Alex, a criminal. A criminal who succeeded where diplomats would have failed. Your point? Taith had no response to that. They reached the mesa at noon, heat shimmering off stone. The clan delegation was already there. 7 figures standing near the trade post, armed but not aggressive. Alex recognized the leader by the red paint. Stay here until I signal, Zarya told Taith. If fighting starts, retreat immediately. No heroics. Your Majesty, that's an order, Commander. She walked forward with only Alex beside her. They crossed the open ground slowly, hands visible. The clans watched their approach with the stillness of people who'd learned patience through survival. Queen Zarya, the leader said. Not mockery, just statement. Counselor, she replied using the formal address. Thank you for meeting with me. We meet because your messenger interested us, and because your grandmother's seal carries weight still. The leader gestured to the others. This is the Council of Seven. We speak for the clans. If you convince us, you convince thousands. Then let me be direct. My cousin is a tyrant. He takes power through fear and violence. Under his rule, the valley will become a place of suffering for everyone, including the clans. He sees you as problems to eliminate, not citizens to govern. And you see us differently. I see you as people who were pushed to the margins because my ancestors feared your strength. That was wrong. I can't undo the past, but I can offer a different future. She pulled out a document, physical, not digital, handed it to the leader. Everything I promised, in writing, signed in my blood. The leader examined it. The signature was indeed blood. Blue, clearly not ink. This grants us almost complete autonomy. Within your territories, yes, you govern yourselves. You keep your resources. You trade freely. In return, you're part of the kingdom, protected by it, represented in it, but not controlled by it. Why? One of the council asked. Why give us this power? Because power shared is power multiplied. A kingdom where citizens choose to participate is stronger than one held together by force. She looked at each of them. And because my grandmother believed in you, before the court poisoned her reforms, she saw what you could be. Allies, not enemies. I want to finish her work. Pretty words, another counselor said, but words fade. What guarantee do we have? My life, Zarya's voice stayed level. I'll come to your territories. Unarmed. Alone if you require it. Live among you for a span, a week, a month, however long you need. Judge me by my actions, not my bloodline. The council exchanged looks. Alex felt tension coiling in his spine. This wasn't part of the plan. She was improvising, offering herself as hostage, basically. Your Majesty, he started quietly. It's the only way, she said, not looking at him. Words aren't enough. They need proof. The leader stepped closer to her. They were nearly the same height. You would trust us with your life? After we attacked your kind for generations? My kind attacked you first, pushed you to Badlands and called it mercy. She met the leader's eyes through the mask. Yes, I trust you, because you kept your word to Alex, because you came here when you could have ignored my offer, because everything I've learned about the clans says you value honor over expedience. We could kill you now. Take your stronghold while your forces are leaderless. You could, but you won't, because that would prove my cousin right, that the clans are savages who can't be negotiated with, and I don't think you want that legacy. Long silence. The wind across the mesa was the only sound, carrying dust and heat. Finally, the leader removed their mask, revealed a face marked by radiation scars, eyes sharp and assessing. Female, older than Zarya, but not by much. I am Kayla Wren, first of the seven. I knew your grandmother, mourned her when she died. She looked at the document again. This is what she wanted, what she fought for. I know. And you're willing to live by it, even if it costs you throne support, even if your court revolts? My court already revolted, helped my cousin overthrow me. I'll build a new court, one that understands partnership over domination. Kayla smiled, sharp and approving. You speak like her, your grandmother. Same steel. She looked at the other counselors. Vote. They conferred briefly in their language. Then one by one, each raised a hand. 7 hands, unanimous. We accept your terms, Queen Zarya, but not as subjects, as allies. The clans will fight beside you against your cousin, and you will come to our territories after, as promised. Live with us. Learn from us. Agreed. Zarya extended her hand. Kayla took it, gripped firmly. And your messenger, Kayla said, looking at Alex. He speaks truth even when dangerous. Rare quality. You should keep him close. I intend to. They finalized details, troop movements, supply lines, communication protocols. The clans could mobilize 5,000 fighters, all experienced in guerrilla warfare. Combined with Zaria's forces, they'd be nearly equal to her cousin's army. When the meeting ended, the clans departed first, vanishing into the Badlands like smoke. Zarya stood watching them go, document still in her hand. That was reckless, Alex said quietly. That was necessary. You offered yourself as hostage. I offered myself as proof. There's a difference. She looked at him. You would have done the same. I'm expendable. You're not. Everyone's expendable if the cause is right. She walked back toward the rover. But thank you for worrying. The return to the stronghold was quieter. Taith was furious about the hostage offer, but couldn't argue with results. The clan alliance changed everything. Suddenly they had real strength, real possibility. In the war room that evening, they planned the offensive. Combined forces would strike in 3 waves. Clans hitting supply lines and communications, Zaria's troops taking strategic positions, then a final push toward the capital. It would take weeks to coordinate. Months, maybe. Your cousin will hear about this, Drath warned. He'll accelerate his own plans. Let him, Zarya said. Fear makes people sloppy. Let him worry about fighting on 2 fronts. The meeting dispersed. Zarya remained, staring at maps, calculating angles of attack. Alex lingered near the door. You should sleep, he said. So should you. Yeah, but I'm not carrying a kingdom on my shoulders. She looked up, tired but determined. Feels lighter now. Since the clans, since you. She crossed to him. I need to ask you something. Another contract. I'm listening. When this is over, when we take back the capital, when my cousin is dealt with, I need someone beside me who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. Someone not bound by court protocol or political ambition. Someone who sees me as Zarya, not just the queen. You're asking me to stay. I'm asking you to consider it. You'd have full pardon, of course, position of your choosing, and, she hesitated, and my friendship, if you want it. Your friendship. Unless you want something else? She said it carefully, watching his face. He wanted to laugh, wanted to tell her this was crazy. A queen and a convict, a partnership built on desert survival and shared danger. Except it wasn't crazy. It was the most natural thing he'd felt in years. What about your court? He asked. The real one, not the Vipers. They'll oppose a human in a position of power. Then they'll learn to accept it, or find new employment. Her voice hardened. I'm done compromising on who I trust. Done playing politics with people's lives. You've earned more from me than they ever did. Your ex-wife, she continued quietly, she taught you what trust costs. Let me teach you what it's worth. He looked at her. Armor and exhaustion and absolute certainty in those blue eyes. A woman who'd walked through hell and come out stronger. Who'd offered herself to potential enemies because it was right. Who'd chosen honor over safety every time. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay, I'll stay. After. When this is done. He smiled. But I'm not wearing court clothes. That's non-negotiable. She laughed, real and relieved. Deal. Then impulsively she hugged him. Arms around his shoulders, face against his neck, just for a moment. He froze, surprised, then carefully returned it. Her armor was cold against his chest. She was warm beneath it. When she pulled back, there was color in her cheeks. Sorry, that was unprofessional. You're a queen. You can define professional however you want. Dangerous logic. I'm a dangerous man. They stood there, too close, both aware of it and neither moving away. The moment stretched, filled with possibility and uncertainty, and something neither was quite ready to name. A knock at the door broke it. Taith's voice. Your Majesty, intelligence reports. Coming. Zarya stepped back, collected herself, became the queen again in the space of a breath. But her eyes stayed on Alex for a heartbeat longer. We'll continue this later. Looking forward to it. The next 3 weeks were brutal preparation, training, logistics, coordinating with clan scouts who moved through the Badlands like ghosts. Intelligence came in steady streams. Her cousin was paranoid, executing suspected traitors daily. The valley suffered under his rule. Food was scarce. Curfews were absolute. Resistance was met with public execution. It only strengthened Zariah's resolve and the soldiers' loyalty. Alex found himself pulled into operations despite having no official role. His experience with smuggling routes proved invaluable for supply lines. His outsider perspective caught problems the military minds missed. Gradually, grudgingly, the commanders accepted him. Even Taith stopped glaring, though she never quite trusted him. "You're good at this," Kayla said one evening. She'd been assigned as liaison between clan forces and Zariah's troops, spent most days in the stronghold. "Strategy? You should have been an officer." "I was, briefly, before the depot incident." "What rank?" "Lieutenant. Nothing impressive." "But you led people." "Until I led them wrong." He took a drink. Something fermented the clans made, harsh and effective. "The 2 guards who died, they were under my command, following my orders. Their deaths are on me." "Were they good people?" "Yeah, young, stupid, but good." "Then they'd understand. Good soldiers know the risks." Kayla leaned back. "You carry their deaths like a punishment. Maybe instead carry them like a lesson. Honor them by doing better next time." "You sound like Zariah. The queen is wise for one so young." Kayla studied him. "She cares for you. Beyond gratitude." "We're friends." "Friends," Kayla smiled. "Is that what humans call it when they look at each other like you two do?" "I don't." "You do. Both of you. Like you're afraid if you blink, the other will disappear." She set down her cup. "Among the clans, we have a saying. Trust earned in blood is trust that lasts. You two earned it. Don't waste it by being cowards." She left him sitting there, thinking too hard about things he'd been trying not to think about. 2 days before the offensive, Zariah called him to her quarters. Evening was falling, the canyon walls turning golden. She stood at the window looking out over the valley they'd soon fight for. "Kayla says you're avoiding me," she said without turning. "I've been busy. So have I. Yet I've found time to look for you." She turned. "Talk to me, Alex. What changed?" "Nothing changed." "Liar." She crossed to him, stopping close enough that he had to meet her eyes. 3 weeks ago you agreed to stay, to be part of this, part of my future. Now you can barely stand to be in the same room. If you've changed your mind, just say it." "I haven't changed my mind." "Then what?" He wanted to lie, deflect, use one of 100 practiced evasions. Instead, "I'm scared." "Of the battle?" "Of this." He gestured between them. "Of caring about someone again. Of trusting someone who could destroy me worse than any prison. Of being the person who gets you killed because I'm a distraction." She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she took his hands. "I'm scared too. Terrified, actually. Of failing my people. Of becoming my cousin. Of losing the first person who's seen me as human instead of symbolic." She squeezed his fingers. "But I've learned something these past weeks. Fear is just information. It tells you what matters. And you matter, Alex Mercer. To me, to this cause, to whatever comes after. I'm not good at this, at being close to people. Neither am I. We'll figure it out together." She smiled slightly. "Besides, you've kept me alive through a desert, an acid storm, and a scavenger attack. I think we can handle a relationship. Is that what this is?" "I don't know. What do you want it to be?" He could feel his heart hammering, could see his reflection in her eyes, tired, scarred, but somehow hopeful. Something real, not politics, not strategy, just us. "Us," she repeated, like testing the word. "I like that." She kissed him, gentle at first, tentative, then with more certainty as he responded. His hands found her waist, felt the warmth of her through the thin shirt she wore when not in armor. She tasted like the sweet tea they'd been drinking, like something he hadn't known he was searching for. When they pulled apart, both breathing unsteadily, she rested her forehead against his. "We should probably wait until after the battle. Stay focused." "Probably." Neither moved. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered. "Completely. I'm a queen. You're a convict. Former convict, technically." She laughed against his mouth. "We're going to cause a scandal." "Good. Your court needs shaking up." They kissed again, longer this time, the world narrowing to just this: heat and want and the simple human need for connection. When they finally separated, the moons had risen, casting silver light through the window. Stay, she said. Tonight, just sleep. I just want you close. Are you sure? About this? Yes, about the battle, the throne, everything else? Terrified. But this, us, I'm sure. They lay down together, her back against his chest, his arm around her waist. She fit against him like they'd been designed to match. Outside, the stronghold prepared for war. Inside, for a few hours, there was only peace. Dawn came cold and sharp. The offensive began before sunrise. Clan forces moving through the Badlands toward supply depots and communication arrays. Zarya's troops mobilized in 3 groups, each targeting key positions around the capital. The goal was to isolate her cousin, cut off reinforcements, then converge on the palace itself. Alex drove Zarya in the command rover, Taith beside them coordinating communications. The first reports came in positive. Depots destroyed, communications down. Her cousin's forces were scrambling, confused. He's withdrawing troops from the north wall, Taith said, reading updates. Leaving it vulnerable. Tell Group 3 to exploit it. Push through before he realizes his mistake. Zarya's voice was calm, commanding. This was her element, strategy and decision. What about clan forces? 16 targets hit. No casualties yet. Kayla reports they're moving faster than projected. The battle unfolded like a chess game played at lethal speed. Zarya adjusted tactics in real time, responding to her cousin's defenses, exploiting weaknesses. Alex watched her work, saw the queen who'd been trained for this since childhood. She was magnificent. By midday, they'd reached the outer districts of the capital. Resistance was heavier here. Fortified positions, professional soldiers. The fighting turned brutal. Alex stayed with Zarya, acting as her personal guard when Taith couldn't. They moved through smoke and gunfire, Zarya directing troops while dodging incoming fire. A sniper's shot cracked past her head. Alex pushed her down behind cover, felt the second shot slam into his shoulder. The impact spun him, sent him to his knees. Pain exploded white-hot through his arm. Alex! Zarya's hands were on him, checking the wound. Medic! Now! I'm fine. Just a graze. Lie. It hurt like hell and blood was soaking his jacket. You're not fine. Stay down. She looked around, spotted the sniper position, called coordinates to a heavy weapons team. The building erupted in fire moments later. A medic appeared, started working on his shoulder. The bullet had gone through, missing bone but tearing muscle. They packed the wound, gave him something for the pain that made the world soft at the edges. You're done, the medic said. No more fighting. The hell I am. Alex tried to stand. His legs didn't cooperate. Zarya knelt beside him, her face streaked with dust and blood that wasn't hers. Stay here. That's a royal command. Since when do I follow those? Since now. Since you're bleeding because of me? Her voice cracked slightly. Please. I need you alive more than I need you fighting. He wanted to argue, but the drugs were pulling him under, and she was right. He'd be a liability in this condition. Fine, but you stay safe, no heroics. Says the man who took a bullet for me. That was instinct, not heroism. She kissed him, quick and fierce. Same thing. Then she was gone, back into the battle, and he was being carried to a field hospital in one of the secured buildings. The hours that followed were fragments. Surgery without full anesthesia. They were running low. Pain that made him scream. Then nothing as unconsciousness took him. He woke to silence, the kind that comes after battles, heavy and unnatural. His shoulder was bandaged properly now, arm in a sling. He was in a real bed, not a field cot. Sunlight streamed through windows he didn't recognize. You're awake. Taith sat in a chair nearby, armor dented but intact. Good. The Queen's been checking on you every hour. The battle. Won. The capital's ours. Your cousin surrendered when we breached the palace. She said you're with deliberate emphasis, no longer her. A sign of respect, maybe. And Zarya? Alive, unhurt, currently dealing with the transition of power. Taith leaned forward. You saved her life. That sniper had her dead to rights. Just doing my job. Your job was guide. You've gone considerably beyond that. She stood. She'll want to know you're awake. I'll tell her. Minutes later, Zarya burst through the door, still in battle-stained armor, looking exhausted and relieved in equal measure. She crossed to his bed, hands finding his face, checking him with her eyes and touch. "You scared me," she said. "Sorry, habit. Don't ever do that again." "Take a bullet for you? Can't promise that." He managed a weak smile. "Kind of goes with the territory of caring about someone. Then I'll have to make sure you never need to." She sat on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle his shoulder. "Your sentence. It's void. Full pardon. Signed by me as acting queen. You're free." The word landed strange. Free. He'd almost forgotten what it meant. "And your cousin?" "In custody, awaiting trial." Her voice hardened. "He'll face justice. Real justice, not execution. I won't become him by mirroring his methods." "That's going to make you unpopular with some people." "Let them be unpopular. I'm building something different here." She took his hand, the one not immobilized. "Starting with keeping my promises. To the clans, to my people, to you." "What promise did you make me?" "That I wouldn't betray you. That you'd have a place here, if you wanted it." She looked at him directly. "Do you want it?" He thought about the desert, the outpost, the endless cycle of guide runs and reduced sentences. Thought about the years ahead, alone, carrying other people through hell for increments of freedom. Then he thought about her. Blue skin and split lips and absolute courage. Thought about fighting beside her, trusting her, wanting her. "Yeah," he said, "I want it." She kissed him, gentle because of his injuries but certain. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "Good, because I wasn't planning to let you leave anyway. Royal decree and all that. Tyrannical. I learned from the best." She stood reluctant. "Rest, heal. The reconstruction will take months. I need you functional for it." "Reconstruction?" "Of everything. Government, trade, relations with the clans. The valley's a mess, and I'm going to need people I trust to help fix it." She paused at the door. "Starting with my personal advisor, if you'll take the position. I'm a smuggler, not a politician. You're a survivor who tells the truth and fights for what's right. That's exactly what I need." She smiled. "Besides, the court needs shaking up. You'll be perfect." She left him there, exhausted and healing, and somehow, impossibly, hopeful. 3 weeks of brutal preparation followed. Alex healed through sheer stubbornness, refusing to let his shoulders slow him down. The capital transformed, occupation ending, reconstruction beginning under Zariah's relentless drive. Her cousin's trial was public and swift. The tribunal sentenced him to life imprisonment. No execution, no martyrdom. Zariah announced it from the palace steps. "Justice without vengeance, law without cruelty. This is what we're building." Not everyone agreed, but the clans did. Kayla attended personally, told Zariah afterward. "Your grandmother would be proud." Alex found his role as advisor suited him. He understood survival, logistics, desperate choices. The court learned to respect the human who'd brought their queen home alive. Kayla visited often, maintaining the alliance, and one evening caught him watching Zariah work herself to exhaustion. "She needs to sleep," Kayla said. "Tried. She ignored me." "Because you asked. Try commanding. You're the person she listens to most." He did. Walked into Zariah's office. Took the documents from her hands. "Enough. You're done for tonight." She started to argue. Saw his expression. Relented. They walked through the palace gardens, newly restored, plants from across the valley growing together. A symbol of unity. "I'm a queen," Zariah said eventually. "That comes with expectations. The court wants me to marry someone politically advantageous. They've presented 17 candidates." His stomach went cold. "I rejected them all." She took his hands. "Because none of them are you. You're not temporary, not a phase. You're it for me." He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I love you. I've been terrified to say it, but I do. I love you too." She pulled back to see his face. "So we'll figure it out. Together. The court will lose their minds. Let them. I've toppled one tyrant. I can handle some angry nobles." The anniversary of Zariah's restoration came with celebration. She stood before her people, no longer exiled, no longer desperate. Queen in truth, commanding respect and love in equal measure. Alex stood beside her on the palace steps. Not behind, not hidden. Beside. Her advisor, her partner, her choice. The crowd accepted it now. Some enthusiastically, some grudgingly, but accepted. That evening, after the celebrations ended, they returned to her chambers. She removed her crown carefully, set it aside. The weight of it always surprised him. Not the physical weight, but what it represented. She carried it all day, every day, and never complained. "Come here," she said, beckoning him to the window. Outside, the valley spread before them. Lights from thousands of homes like stars brought to earth. Peaceful, prosperous, healing. "We did this," she said softly. "All of us. You, me, Kayla, the clans, every person who chose to believe in something better. You did this. I just helped. No, we're partners in this, in everything." She reached into a drawer, pulled out something small. His breath caught. Her ring, the one he'd thrown in the fire, the one she'd retrieved, obsidian and gold, her mother's seal. "I want you to have this," she said. "Zarya, I can't, not as payment, not as a gift, as a promise." She pressed it into his palm. "That what we're building together, this government, this relationship, this life, it's forever. That I choose you, freely and completely. That you're my family now." The ring was warm in his hand, like it had been carried close to her heart. He looked at it, at her, at the valley beyond. Everything he'd never expected. Everything he'd stopped believing possible. "After my ex-wife," he said quietly, echoing their first meeting, "you're still adorable." She laughed, bright and free. "You're impossible." "Yeah, but I'm yours." "Yes, you are." She kissed him, soft and certain. "And I'm yours, no matter what comes." They stood together at the window, looking out over the valley as the moons rose. The ring caught the moonlight, gleamed like it had in the fire, like it had in the desert, like it did now, a symbol of survival, trust, and love earned through impossible odds. Behind them, the crown sat on its stand, power and responsibility waiting for tomorrow. But tonight was theirs. Just a queen and a smuggler who'd found each other in the desert and built something worth keeping. The ring stayed warm in his hand, a promise kept, a future beginning,